Welcome back. Long time overdue to episode 10 of Awesome Sauce for Games. I, as always, am BJ Weiler. And yes, it's been quite a few months since we actually have had time, or the inclination really, to sit down and chat about something in particular, about games. So there's actually a lot to chat about. First, what can we cover? Well, could we talk about the Gamekiller Sony Online Entertainment? Yes, killing 4 MMOs, 2 of which are sunsetting at the end of this month, which just happens to be March 2014. So at the end of March 2014, Free Realms and Star Wars The Clone Adventures are sunsetting. I don't know much about Free Realms or really Star Wars Clone Wars Adventures, aside from the fact that CWA is Star Wars and presumably one of the reasons, though not actually stated here, is that it's sunsetting is that because EA now has a stranglehold on the Star Wars IP. Here, let's see what this article says. Free Realms was a true labor of love, amazing memories, and reached a point in its life where players are moving on. Okay, so just basic, usual PR drivel with that. Same thing with Clone Wars. We mutually agreed with LucasArts to sunset the game on March 31st, 2014 for Clone Wars Adventures. Well, that's no surprise since Disney awarded the IP to EA. So technically, depending on how the contract works with that, they might not be allowed to keep running it. So a little surprise there. Of course, 2 of the biggest MMOs they are shutting down. Vanguard, Saga of Heroes, which launched right around 2007. Somewhat much fanfare back in that time, but to a completely disastrous launch, which it did recover from, and it's lasted 7 years, so the game must have did something right. I played that on and off here and there through those years. Guild Wars pretty much still taking up all my time during the formative years of Vanguard. So I really didn't have as much time to spend in Vanguard as I would have liked. Now, of course, that I'm trying to delve deeper into it, they're shutting it down at the end of July 2014, July 31st, 2014. And, of course, their excuse is, well, it's an older game with a decreasing player population. Yes, true. But their last reports back around November, December 2013 was that the player population was increasing since the game went free to play. So more a bunch of bull, and somewhat not also quite a surprise, but still a disappointment, Wizardry Online, which is about a year old, or just over a year old at this point in the West anyway. This game, Wizardry Online, is actually a port from a Japanese game that is run by GamePot. It's been up in Japan for quite a few years. I'm not sure exactly when, how long it's been running there, but SOE and GamePot decided to bring it over to the West. And of course, I mean, it definitely looks old. Some of the mechanics and combat and stuff are sort of wonky, but nevertheless, it's Wizardry. It was a true hardcore game at the start until they started softening it up a bit, but still more hardcore than anything we have today. And Sony completely mishandled it, basically. So, of course, 4 more games to add to Sony's list of games they've murdered. A couple other notable ones, of course, being Matrix Online, and how can we forget SWG Star Wars Galaxies, a disaster of a game, but nevertheless somewhat popular within the Star Wars fan base, and people still crying about the loss of Star Wars Galaxies whenever they can. Of course, I played that off and on through the 8 years it was in existence, and yes, the game was almost complete garbage and just badly implemented. It was a chat room with a Star Wars skin, or as I, also Second Life, as I like to say, with a Star Wars skin. But anyway, that's it for SOE. Needless to say, the primary reason for these 4 shutdowns, of course, in addition to EA holding the rights to Star Wars with CWA, of course, is Sony's new baby project they are having in development right now. Of course, it's in alpha with no NDA. That's Everquest Next, a sandboxy fantasy MMO that's sort of been mishmashed with Minecraft. So it's basically an MMO set in the EverQuest world of fantasy, and it's basically a building game, more or less, at this point. So with EverQuest Next, they also have Landmark, which is more the heavy building. EverQuest Next will be more of the MMO-ish type adventuring. But needless to say, Sony will not be having any more of my business at this point in time, because why not keep Vanguard running? Why not find a way to keep some of these games running? Why not offer ownership of CWA to EA, see if they want to take it, at least make the offer. Would EA take over CWA? Probably not. At least make the offer. I think Sony owes it to the fan base. Same thing with Vanguard and Wizardry Online. With Wizardry Online, we know we already have servers in Russia, we have servers in Japan. As a quick workaround, as something homage to the people who really love this game and supported it for the past year, why not allow them to transfer their characters over to an active server there? Have some localization translation as well. That way, of course, for the English-speaking people, we can actually read what's going on, the quest and all that. But no, of course, that would be too much work for Sony. And of course, Vanguard Saga of Heroes, very popular game with its core fan base. I think last count, probably 40 to 50,000 players, something like what Conan has. Lord of the Rings, those type of things, maybe even a little bit more since it went free to play. It did pick up a bit, it did gain in popularity, and of course a lot of the launch issues and bugs have been worked out of the game. Very pretty game. One of the reasons I got interested in was because the graphics were a little bit more realistic at that time. I was looking for something really photorealistic, and Vanguard was, offered a little bit some of that. Of course, the high requirements pretty much killed a lot of systems, but they worked around a lot of the problems, and it really came into its own. And one of the unique systems in Vanguard was the diplomacy system, where you can actually be a diplomat. Instead of fighting and killing 10 rats, you can negotiate with 10 rats. So that's something that is definitely going to be lost. That, and of course, as usual, when an MMO sunsets, people say, hey, how about private servers, this and that. Of course, Sony's not going to go for that. Legal excuses and all. The regular Membo Jumbo, even though every multiplayer game under the sun in the history of mankind generally allows people to play on privately held servers. Also, Ragnarok Online's been out since 2002. There are actually more player-run servers in that game than official servers. So the precedent is there to allow games to be run on private servers. So the excuse that you can't allow Vanguard to run on private servers is a bunch of bunk. They just don't want to do it. So, needless to say, Sony will not be getting any more of my business. If I'm going to be invested in the game, I want to make sure I can play that game for as long as I want to play that game. A la Guild Wars. Things could change, but still, at this point, ArenaNet and NCSoft say we're going to keep Guild Wars running as long as there is somebody playing it. And of course, Guild Wars is coming up on its 9th anniversary at the end of next month, which would be April 2014. If you're watching this before April, and again, if you're watching this after April 29th, well, Guild Wars celebrated its 9th anniversary on April 29th, this past April. Anyway, that's that. What else can we talk about? Oh, Star Wars The Old Republic is getting some housing. Yes, Star Wars is indeed becoming a Star Wars Galaxies 2. No, sorry. Star Wars Galaxies fanboys. SWTOR is still and always will be a theme park game, and one that is infinitely more better and better implemented than Star Wars Galaxies ever was or could ever hope to be. Regardless, big patch coming up. Early access will be the end of June, June 24th for all subscribers. We'll get access plus, this is a biggie, free housing worth basically $250,000 credits, in-game credits, according to BioWare. They'll get a house on Nar Shaddaa for free. So if you're a subscriber, by the time this launches, I don't know if there's a cutoff or deadline for a particular, but if you're a subscriber when early access launches on June 24th, you will get a free house. And from the sounds of it, there's going to be quite a lot of customization, surprisingly enough, considering how little customization there is allowed in the game at this point. Plus Guild Capital Ships, but Guild Capital Ships will not be launching till the official launch date in August. So subscribers get, what is this called? Galactic Strongholds is the expansion, DLC, patch, whatever you want to call it. So early access, as I said, June 24th for subscribers. Preferred members, which are people who are not subscribing but spent money in the cash shop or were former subscribers, you will get your access in July, a month later. And of course, the official launch of Galactic Strongholds. For the rest of the community, the free-to-play players who have not spent a dime on the game, they will have access to it the end of August. And this is a free expansion. You do not have to pay for anything. It's free. What else can you say? So kudos there, even though to me it's completely useless. We sort of went over this topic in a previous episode, the sandbox versus theme park episode. Player housing completely useless to me, except in the fact that they are going to tie a legacy storage bank. So basically, on a server, you will now have common storage for all your characters. Instead of having to mail stuff and credits back and forth to a character, you'll actually get a legacy storage bank, sort of like your cargo hold, but all your characters can access it. So that's a plus, and that would probably be the only reason I would use the housing whatsoever, if they force us to only be able to access the legacy storage bank within the housing. Hopefully we will be able to access that elsewhere in the world like we can our regular cargo holds and our guild bank storage. Otherwise, you know, housing is completely useless to me. I would rather the time and resources be spent extending the class stories, which is what Star Wars was all about, which is what the attraction was, which is the one unique thing. Vanguard had diplomacy. Star Wars The Old Republic has great storytelling. So that's what they really need to work on, not this garbage that is housing that only appeals to a small portion of the overall gaming community. Good for the RPers, the role players, of course, and the interior designers. Good for them that they actually get something, you know, that they've been asking for 2 years, but again, not really going along with the theme of the game, not really useful for the majority of the player base. So about Star Wars, what's next? Venus Rising. We've done an episode of Awesome Sauce on this. We did an update in episode 9 3 months ago, saying that the closed alpha was imminent. Well, the closed alpha is here. There'll be a link actually in the description of this episode of Awesome Sauce for you to check out the website. Of course, you have to register and all that to get in and get some good stuff. But you can buy your way into alpha access if you support the game. You know, sort of the SOP now with alpha and beta accesses, as we have seen in this changing world that is the gaming industry. You can now buy your way into alpha and beta accesses. You're basically supporting the game, and you get the early access to help test the game, help formulate which direction the game's going, basically help build the game essentially if you use alpha and beta testing properly. So hopefully I will be able to get some video of Venus Rising up on the YouTube channel shortly. I've been having some problems getting recordings going on it. I haven't been able to get it recorded yet, so got to work out those issues, and we will actually be able to start bringing you some Venus Rising action and see how it is right now. And this is very early alpha. This is basically as alpha as you can get to with Venus Rising. This is the first playable portion of the game that's actually been released outside of internal building and testing, so very, very early alpha. I haven't really, I went in, created a character with it already just to see if I could change some settings and stuff. I haven't been able to change any settings to be able to get the game in a window mode the way I like when I'm doing my recordings and stuff like that. So got to work out those issues, and hopefully we'll be able to work them out and start getting you some video. There is no NDA, so you can show what you want as long as it's, of course, appropriate for YouTube. As we have seen in recent days, YouTube is starting to be a little bit finicky, but that's a whole nother story. So, what else can we talk about this episode? Oh, yes, the Elder Scrolls Online. I think we're going back to the Elder Scrolls Online. So, in the last 3 months, not only do we get a release date for Elder Scrolls, April 4th, so we are less than a month away. In fact, we're only a couple of weeks away from the imminent release of Elder Scrolls Online, which we have talked about in previous episodes. A PC version only, though, of course. Console versions are not releasing until June. We don't have an exact date for that. But one of the biggie things that we've talked about in the past about ESO Online is the cash shop, the subscription fee, and really, is it good for the game, is it bad for the game? Now, if you watched episode 2 or 3 of Awesome Sauce, I was really against the idea of the game launching with a subscription because, as we all know, free-to-play is starting to be the norm, or freemium, the hybrid. Of course, a lot of this stuff we talked about in that episode. Me personally, again, the freemium business model seems to be where the industry is heading, seems to be the best of both worlds for both developers and for players to be able to try out games, see what they like, and then be able to support the games via microtransactions. Now, of course, ESO is bucking that trend. They are going with pure sub-based subscription, but as we noted in those previous episodes, they also said it will have a cash shop and it will have fun stuff. Despite the hemming and hawing of all the sub-based fanboys out there on their Facebook page and out in the greater interwebs, yes, you will have a cash shop, and it wasn't just services. No, Matt Ferrer, as we mentioned before, did say fun stuff, and now it is confirmed. It is fun stuff. So, in the grand scheme of things, no big deal. WoW's been doing it for years now. Again, freemium is the future. So, games with freemium offer a subscription that gives you basically full access to the game and all the content in terms of what, Star Wars The Old Republic offers you. It gives you cartel coins, so you can actually get stuff from their cash shop without actually having to spend real money in it. Now, Elder Scrolls Online and WoW are a little bit differently in that your subscription doesn't get you access to any of that stuff in the cash shop. So, despite what all the subscription fanboys say, your subscription no longer gets you everything in the game. And, of course, we discussed some of the other myths about free-to-play and subscriptions in the previous episode, so we're not going to rehash them, but again, in the grand scheme of things, no big deal, except for the fact, of course, one of the core reasons ZeniMax gave for running a pure sub-based game was that, yes, we don't want players to be gated, to feel there is stuff behind a paywall. A paywall. We'll get more into that in a moment. They essentially said, we want your subscription to grant you everything. Well, now it no longer does. Again, has a cash shop, fun stuff. Right now there's only one fun thing, a starter level horse, no big deal. Except for the fact, again, it's a paywall. There's a similar horse that you can get in-game, so again, no big deal. But again, it's a paywall, something in the cash shop that your subscription does not give you. a subscription that is supposed to give you everything in the game. It does not. And of course, we have the Imperial Edition, you know, the collector's edition, so to speak, of the game, which has a whole entire race behind the paywall. No, if you're a subscriber, you don't get this race unless you pay an extra $100-odd for this Imperial Edition. Then you get to play the race, so you get your subscription on top of this and that. So again, you know, it's not so much that this stuff is behind a paywall, because that's part of what freemium is. Those cosmetic stuff doesn't really give you in-game advantages. But yet, if you're going to use the excuse that we are charging a sub because we think a sub offers players everything they want to get in the game, and then you basically two-face them and say, well, except for this stuff, and then whatever else we decide to add to the cash shop down the road, because obviously they're not going to have one starter level mount in the cash shop. They're going to be selling a whole heck of a lot more, and you know, as indications are with WoW, and as indications are with this mount and the race and Imperial Edition, you're not going to be able to get in game. You'll be able to get something similar in game maybe, but you're not going to be able to get that exact item, and that's where really the sticking point is. If you're going to have a sub, then that sub should grant you everything, even if you do it like SWTOR does and you give a monthly allotment of cash shop currency and say, okay, there you go. That's fine. Here again, no indications that this is going to happen. No indications that there is a cash shop currency. It's basically real dollars at this point, like WoW's. So all the subscription fanboys, this is where it's going, you know, and that did cause a bit of controversy within the ESO community, especially, I think, more so the Imperial Edition than the announcement of the horse in the cash shop. But these things are yet to come. This is why freemium is the future. If I can pull up that article, a month or two ago we had a list of the top 10 free-to-play game income. Here we go. This article is from GamesBeat. 10 online PC games that made more than $100 million in microtransaction sales last year. Okay, so let's show this. So Crossfire was number one. Never heard of that game. $957 million. $957 million. That's almost $1 billion. Strictly microtransactions. Apparently, I guess Crossfire is an Eastern game, something like that. But number two is a game we've all heard of, League of Legends. Yes, $624 million in microtransactions. Completely free to play the game. Not quite an MMO. It's a MOBA, mobile online battle arena, something like that. But yeah, free to play game. $624 million. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Number 7, World of Warcraft. We all know that game, a pure sub-based game with a cash shop. Their cash shop alone puts them number 7 at the list with $213 million in revenue in 2013. And right behind them, Star Wars The Old Republic, $139 million in cash shop revenue. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much you hate cash shops, no matter how much you hate free-to-play, freemium and cash shops are here to stay, because obviously the majority of the player base, the majority of the gaming community has made a statement. We made a statement years ago when we bought $10 horse armor for Oblivion. We made a statement saying, yes, we don't mind microtransactions. In fact, as you can see, we prefer them since we tend to spend a heck of a lot more, some of us anyway, in these cash shops than the cheapskate sub players who want to spend only $15 a month and still get everything in the game. Well, my friends, sub-based fanboys who claim free-to-play players, or people who enjoy the free-to-play business model of cheapskates, I don't think so. These games are making more money than a subscription in a year. Sometimes 3 to 4 times the amount of a subscription-based game in a year. No. Seems to me that the free-to-play player base aren't the cheapskates. It's the people who only want to pay $15 a month and not a penny more to get everything. Yes, I think those are the true cheapskates in the game because, there's been studies upon studies, and I'm not talking about player polls or MMORPG player polls, fanboy polls. Now, there have been actual studies that basically you have your small percentage of whales, which again we talked about in that previous episode. Your small percentage of whales that spend insane amount of money and basically are the main support for these free-to-play games. But your average player base, the bulk of the player base, 3/4 to 90% of the player base, spend right around $10 to $20 a month anyway in a free-to-play game. So, it's basically a wash when you look at it like that. So there is, you have your small minority of players that spend a ton of money that's in direct purport. That's in some sort of direct ratio, whatever word I'm looking for, as opposed to the rest of the player base. The 95 to 98% of the player base that either spends a rational amount or nothing at all. And of course, the bulk of that 75 to 90% of that 95 to 98% of the player base actually spend a reasonable amount, $10 to $15 a month on average, of course. And so that leaves basically 10% of the player base that are the actual cheapskates that play a game regularly. Not even that. Some of them don't even play regularly, but play the game and actually don't spend a dime. So again, complete myth that free-to-play players don't want to pay for games. It's already been proven with like the Orange Box. I believe, what was it? There's some game, Stardock. They're DRM free. They've released some games, I believe, that said, hey, pay what you can. They made crap tons of money without, charging an official price for some stuff. So gamers are willing to pay for games that they enjoy and they like. So to use, to use class warfare almost is pretty childish and asinine. Freemium is here to stay. Free-to-play is here to stay. It is a moneymaker for the gaming industry because we, the majority of the gaming community, say we like it. This is what we prefer over a subscription, because it comes to the point where, what, an emergency came up this month. I don't have the extra money. I don't have that $15. That $15 has to go to a medical bill or a car repair bill or something like that this month. Well, with a subscription-based game, you cancel your subscription, you get nothing. The free-to-play game, hey, I can't afford anything this month. I still get access to everything I've gotten up to this point. So that's where it's actually fun and helpful. I mean, you want to talk about, like I said before, you want to talk about paywalls, you want to talk about pay gates. A subscription is a 100% pay gate blocker. You either pay the $15 a month or you get nothing. Free-to-play, you get whatever, it varies between game to game, but you get something for free. You get more if you pay for it, but if you stop paying, you still don't lose anything. So it comes to time because, life happens, essentially. So for people to use excuse, well, get a job, it's only 50 cents a day. Well, sometimes that 50 cents a day needs to go somewhere else. So, you know what? Why? And in those stressful times, being able to stop, play a game helps relieve the stress. So to say, well, you shouldn't be playing games if you've got other stuff to worry about. No, I'm sorry, that's a piss poor excuse. Playing games, doing stuff like that is actually pretty healthy. So in those stressful times, so being able to do that without having to worry about paying a bill that you can't afford for that particular month or two, well, we can see the majority of the gaming player base agrees with that sentiment. So there you have it. Anybody else on this list? Counter-Strike Online, 121 million there in 10th. Team Fortress 2, 9th, 139 million. Lineage 1, 257 million. So again, you got games, World of Tanks, Dungeon Fighter Online, MapleStory round that out. So games from, all sorts of different types of games right here in the top 10, making some serious dough with microtransactions. So yes, microtransactions is the wave of the future, just like, as we mentioned before with Venus Rising buying into alpha and betas. Everquest Next is doing it. ESO did it. Guild Wars 2 did it. You couldn't access the beta unless you pre-ordered. So that is the wave of the future. Again, a lot of people don't like that concept, but yet it obviously enough of the gaming community doesn't mind it that, hey, I'm going to support the game anyway. Might as well do it now and let me get some early access. So that's just the way it is. If you don't like it, then you know what? You got to find yourself a new hobby. Or, you know what? You got to learn to live in gaming in the 21st century. I know I am starting to. I'm an old fogey, but I'm still sort of learning my way through. A couple of things, see, DLC. I never liked the concept of DLC or digital distribution. I felt I should just be able to go to a store, buy a box game, get everything in there for that one boxed price. So I didn't like digital distribution. What is this? Why do I have to pay for extra content in the game? Digital distribution. What do you mean I have to download something? I want my physical copy that I can take with me and install wherever I want to. So, but then I realized, DLC and digital distribution actually benefit the gaming industry and benefit the majority of gamers. I've learned that, it's all right. It's good. Gives me something extra. And the costs really are nominal. The problems really are nominal at this point. Same thing with freemium. Same thing with free-to-play. This is the future. Same thing with buying into alpha and betas. This is the future of the gaming industry. It's how games will be made. It helps games to get made. This is not a charity business. It's not a charity industry. Even if you're high and mighty, your most honorable indie developers, they are in it for the money. That's why people make games. Yes, it's fun, but ultimately you want to make a living at making games. Indie developers, by and large, will tell you the same thing. So this isn't a charity. This isn't be nice to gamers industry. This is a business. Business has got to do what it needs. It offers services. If gamers like those services, it will continue to offer those services and expand upon them. If gamers do not like those services, then it won't. So people can say, WoW dumbed down the MMO. Free-to-play has ruined the MMO genre. No, they have actually offered people more opportunity to enjoy games. Gamers have embraced that. The majority of the gaming player base, get over it. It's the future. Free-to-play allows more people to come in and enjoy games. If they enjoy them, again, studies have shown, the numbers themselves have shown, gamers are more than willing to spend for games that they think are worth their time and worth their money. So, long and short of it is, subscriptions are not on their way out. They're just going to go into a hybrid model. Of course, there will be some games like EVE Online, which will be able to support a hybrid type pure subscription because they're more niche games. Everquest Next, however, will be free to play. Just keep that in mind. But that's just the way it is. That's the future. You either adapt to it like I've learned to do, or you move on and, go back to playing board games or find a new hobby, maybe reading a book. Who knows how that might turn out. That might be something you might end up enjoying. And hopefully down the road it won't actually cost you an extra dime. Of course, it's one of the things I'm railing against. I'd rather have a physical book in my hand and not an electric little finger flopper thing. Sorry, I want my book in my hand. And that's all there is to it, because that's a book I own. I paid money for it. It's my book to take with as I please, and nobody can come and swipe it off my ebook reader, Amazon. But I guess that's it for this episode. Tune in again, who knows when, maybe next week, maybe next month. Whenever something really gets our goat, we'll be back with another awesome sauce for games. Once again, I am BJ Weiler. Enjoy life as it is. Enjoy gaming, because freemium is giving us access to a lot of great games coming up in the future. Like I said, Everquest Next will be free to play. That is probably the most next anticipated MMO that will be coming out. And again, it is in alpha right now, so you can buy your way into alpha and begin testing whenever you would like. So, end result, is ESO going to succeed or not? Yes, it will succeed. Will it flop as hard as Star Wars The Old Republic? No, but it will inevitably go freemium. I beta tested it. Yes, I was there beta testing. I've played the game. I've played it heavily because I wanted to be able to go. Now, you're not going to see videos and stuff like that. I didn't record any videos of any of that stuff because, of course, the NDA was up at the time. So I said, I'm not going to bother, so I have no videos. But to me, it's an average game. Nothing spectacular. It does good things. It does things not so well. Of course, the whole starter island thing, the fact that you actually have to put in a feature that allows you to skip content in the game, yeah, that's not saying much. But that being said, yes, ESO will go freemium. I think probably within not later than a year, but no more than 2 years, it will go freemium. That's my prediction. We'll see how that turns out in a couple of years. Anyway, I am BJ Weiler. Thanks for watching Awesome Sauce for Games. And until next time, stay tuned. Venus Rising, more Trove, more Defiance. And at some point, I'll get some more Guild Wars and Star Wars The Old Republic up on the YouTube channel. And in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I'll see you in one of those games or more or whatever. A lot of cat-assing for poop socks coming up. A lot of different games we're going to just pop in that we've never played before. We're going to jump in. That's going to be our new theme for cat-assing. It's just going to pick an MMO we've never played, pop in, start with character creation, and see how it goes. So we started off with Trove like that. Hopefully we're going to be able to do that with Venus Rising once we can get some of the video issues worked out. Mech Warrior Online, I think we're going to do Anno Online. In fact, what else we got here? What else do I have planned? Of course, we're going to do Vanguard and Wizardry Sunsets on our live stream. Mech Warrior Mighty, the epic quest for Mighty Loot we're going to do. We're going to do Stronghold Kingdoms. We alpha tested that probably about 2-3 years ago now. It was March. I remember doing alpha tests in March, the early spring, 2-3 years ago. Early alpha for Stronghold Kingdom. So we're going to pop back into that and see how it has progressed from alpha to beta to it's been live now for about a year or two. So we're going to see what the changes are because we haven't touched that since the alpha. And it was quite fun then. It was actually quite a stable game. So lots of good things coming up on the YouTube channel, on the Real Millennium Group. So stay tuned, subscribe, like, follow us on Twitch. All the information is going to be in the description of the video. So until next time, I will see you once again in some game out there, somewhere. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. And most of all, have fun.